I sold the company.
Logan's laugh hit the Thanksgiving table like a metal lid slammed shut. I was in the corner seat, the one that always felt a little lower, like it had been built for whoever didn't count. My mom, Diane, had just set the turkey down and was telling my aunt how blessed we were this year, how everything was fine, how we were still a strong family. My dad, Gerald, nodded without looking up, eyes fixed on the gravy pooling on his plate like it could answer for him. Logan leaned back, glass in hand, and tipped his chin toward me. "So," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "you still doing that little software thing? The one nobody needs?" My mom gave that familiar laugh, soft, automatic, protective. "He's just teasing, Maya. Don't be so sensitive." I heard the tiny clink of forks, someone's breath catching, the fireplace popping once, and something in me went very still. Not angry, not dramatic, just done. I set my fork down, looked straight across the table, and said it like I was reading an email. I sold the company. Logan barked at a laugh. "Sure, for how much? A few thousand?" My mom tilted her head, deciding how interested she should pretend to be. My dad's shoulders tightened like he already knew where this was going. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't smile. $200 million. Silence dropped over the table, thick, heavy, almost physical. Someone's spoon slipped and tapped a plate. My mom's face went pale in a way I'd never seen before. Logan's grin froze halfway into something else. My dad finally looked up at me, like he was trying to match the person in front of him with the version he'd ignored for years. In that moment, I saw the truth in a clean, brutal line. They didn't know me, and they'd never really tried. I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, in a house that always smelled like fabric softener and television noise. We weren't poor. We had a backyard, a decent car, meals on the table. But the warmth in that house moved in a predictable direction, toward Logan first, toward my mom second, and whatever was left floated thin and cold toward me. My mom had a phrase she used like praise. "Maya's easy. She's fine. She can handle herself." When I was little, I believed her. I thought being easy meant I was good, helpful, less trouble. I thought I was doing my family a favor by needing less. It took years to understand that easy wasn't love. It was permission. Permission for them to stop looking at me. Logan's birthdays were events. Balloons, relatives, photos, gifts that made everyone's eyes sparkle. He got asked what he wanted, where he wanted to go, what kind of cake he liked. My birthdays were quiet little interruptions. A grocery store cake, a couple candles, a quick happy birthday, and then my mom would move on, already halfway into the next thing. If I looked disappointed, I was too sensitive. If I stayed quiet, I was such a good girl. Either way, I learned the same lesson. Don't make your needs visible. Don't make anyone uncomfortable. Don't ask for space at the center of the table. My dad wasn't cruel. He just lived inside silence like it was safer than oxygen. When my mom favored Logan, my dad didn't stop it. When Logan teased me, my dad frowned for a second and then looked away. His favorite sentence was always the same: "Don't make it a big thing." I understood what he meant. He wanted peace. He wanted the house quiet. He wanted tomorrow to look normal. But that kind of peace is a room with no windows. It doesn't save anyone. It just teaches the ignored kid how to breathe in the dark. I started working early. While other kids spent weekends at the mall, I washed dishes at a little restaurant, wiped tables, counted tips with hands that smelled like soap. I didn't tell my family because nobody asked. I opened my own savings account. I tracked every dollar. I lived with an invisible spreadsheet running in my head, what I needed to survive without begging. I didn't hate my mom. I hated the feeling of needing love from someone who treated it like a reward. I left Charleston for Atlanta and built a life out of things that didn't care who my brother was. I studied systems, data, security, quiet structures that behaved logically. Data doesn't lie. Systems don't play favorites. You either hold up or you don't, and the truth shows itself. The first few years were rough. I juggled classes, internships, side jobs, freelance work. Some nights I sat alone in a tiny rented room, staring at the blue glow of my laptop, hearing traffic outside, and wondering, if I vanished, would anyone notice? The answer came fast, and it didn't feel good, so I turned it into fuel. If nobody was watching, I'd have to be even better. If nobody had my back, I'd have to stand stronger. Clearloom started small. A clinic I was consulting for had a data breach because they used cheap software with weak protections. The manager panicked. Doctors feared lawsuits. A staff member cried in the hallway like the world had ended. I stood there and realized something. Small businesses and small clinics get overlooked because they don't have the money to attract real solutions. They're not worth the trouble to big companies. I knew that feeling. So I built something for them. I wrote my first demo at night, sleepless and stubborn. I pitched clinics that didn't want to trust a young woman with their systems. I got dismissed. I got laughed at. I got asked what experience I even had. I wanted to say, I have experience surviving. Instead, I kept going. I fixed what broke. I improved it. I learned how to speak like a leader. I learned how to stop apologizing for taking up space. Clearloom didn't explode overnight. It grew the way real things grow, brick by brick, contract by contract. Quiet wins that didn't look flashy from the outside, but felt like a foundation forming under my feet. I didn't tell my family much. My mom called when she needed something. Logan texted when he wanted a favor. My dad asked polite questions and drifted away. The few times I tried to share good news, my mom responded with the same smooth dismissal. "You'll be fine. You always are." Then she'd launch into another speech about Logan's big plans, how he just needed one good break, how he had so much potential. Logan was always potential. I was always fine. Fine was a box. They put me in it, closed the lid, and stopped thinking. The day the acquisition became official, I didn't cry. I didn't laugh either. I sat at my desk and read the terms again and again, like my brain needed proof to match what my life had become. $200 million, a future opening wide. And still, inside me, this strange, hollow place. I imagined calling my mom. I'd pictured it 100 times. Me saying, "I did it." Her going quiet. Her finally saying she was proud. But when I held my phone, my finger froze. I stared at her name like it was an old door, and I already knew what was behind it. Not the love I wanted, just the same pattern, the same role. The easy daughter, the one who shows up when useful and disappears when done. And on schedule, my mom called a few days later, not to congratulate me, not to ask how I felt. She started with Logan. He was stressed, she said. He was under pressure. He needed support. Family sticks together. Her voice sped up like she'd rehearsed every word. "Can you help your brother out a little, Maya?" I looked out my office window at Atlanta lighting up for the evening, cars flowing like thoughts that never stop. In the quiet before I answered, I heard her old phrase like an echo. "She's easy." I heard Logan smirk. I heard my dad's silence. I took a breath and drew a line I'd never drawn before. "I'm not helping like that anymore," I said calmly. "I'll talk to him, I'll help him find a job or a plan, but I'm not giving him money." There was a beat of silence. Then my mom's tone turned cold. She said I'd changed. She said money made me selfish. She said I'd forgotten my family. I didn't argue. I just felt it, clear and steady in my chest. A boundary. Thanksgiving was coming, and I realized something. If I didn't go home, they would tell my story the way they wanted. busy, ungrateful, too big for her roots. But if I went, I'd see the truth with my own eyes, not in words. Words were cheap in my family, but in the way they treated me when they didn't think I was useful. So I booked a hotel. I bought a ticket with my own schedule. I packed a simple dress and a clean coat like armor. And I told myself the rule for this trip, the one that would decide everything. This year, I'm going back, not to be loved, to see the truth. I didn't tell them the truth at Thanksgiving because I wanted to win a moment. I didn't tell them because I wanted to confirm something. I needed to see who they were when they thought I was still the same easy daughter with the corner seat life. Because if I told them first, they would rearrange their faces, rehearse their lines, pretend they'd always believed in me. They'd rewrite the past so they wouldn't have to feel guilty. And I was tired of living inside their version of my story. Atlanta didn't fix me overnight. It didn't magically turn pain into strength. What it did was give me distance, just enough space to hear my own thoughts without my mother's voice sitting on top of them. My first semester, I lived like a person trying to disappear while still getting everything done. I went to class, went to work, came home late, ate whatever was cheap, and fell asleep with my laptop open. I told myself I liked the grind. I told myself I was ambitious. But the truth was simpler and uglier. I was terrified of stopping. Because if I stopped, I might finally feel how lonely it was to be the one nobody worried about. I worked in a coffee shop before sunrise and did campus IT help desk shifts at night. The help desk was a narrow room that smelled like overheated plastic and stale energy drinks. Students came in frantic because they'd spilled water on their laptops or forgotten their passwords. The problems were small, clean, solvable. I liked that. I liked being the person who could fix something without begging anyone to care. It was there I met Ivy. She wasn't my professor. She wasn't a boss. She was a contracted security consultant who occasionally used our lab to run trainings. Late 40s, sharp eyes, calm hands. The kind of woman who didn't need to raise her voice to take up space. The first time she saw me working past midnight, she didn't ask why I was still there. She just said, "You look like someone who doesn't trust tomorrow." I laughed like it was a joke. She didn't laugh back. A week later, she handed me a list of books and a small sticky note with her email. "If you're serious," she said, "stop trying to be perfect. Try to be dangerous in a quiet way." I didn't even know what that meant yet, but it stayed lodged in my chest like a seed. While my life in Atlanta was built out of shift schedules and deadlines, life back home kept moving in the same familiar pattern. My mom called every couple of weeks, but the calls weren't really about me. They were status checks, proof that I was still fine, proof that she didn't have to feel responsible. She'd ask, "School okay?" And before I could answer fully, she'd pivot. "Logan's thinking of starting something big." Logan was always thinking, always almost, always right on the edge of becoming the person everyone said he was. One month it was an online store. The next month it was an agency that would help local businesses grow. Then crypto. Then a fitness brand with a logo he paid someone else to design. Every time it fell apart, my mom had a new explanation ready. "He's under pressure. He needs support. He's so talented, Maya, he just gets discouraged." And every time, money showed up like a Band-Aid. I'd hear her say she couldn't afford something for herself, and then I'd find out she'd paid Logan's rent again, or covered his credit card again, or bought him equipment again. Once I said gently, "Maybe he needs consequences." My mom's voice sharpened so fast it surprised me. "You don't understand. He's different. He's meant for bigger things." Different, meant, bigger. The words landed in my body like a familiar slap. Because the opposite of meant for bigger things was what she'd always implied about me, that I was meant for the background, meant to be stable, meant to handle myself, meant to not need much. I stopped trying to convince her, not because I forgave her, because I finally understood the rules of the game she'd built. In her world, Logan was a story she was invested in. I was a utility. Clearloom started the year I stopped arguing with my mother. I was consulting part-time for small medical offices, mostly doing unglamorous work, setting up systems, tightening access controls, training staff not to click on obvious phishing emails. I saw the same problem again and again. Clinics that cared about patients but didn't have the budget or expertise to protect their data. They used cheap tools because the better ones were built for huge hospitals. When something went wrong, the clinic took the blame. Then one afternoon, a practice manager called me shaking. Their patient portal had been compromised, not in some Hollywood way, in a boring, preventable way. An outdated plugin, weak passwords, no two-factor authentication, a chain of small, it'll be fine decisions ending in a disaster. I drove over. I watched the doctor's face go white as he realized what it could mean. Lawsuits, fines, reputations ruined. I watched staff members whisper like they were at a funeral. I watched panic spread through a place that was supposed to heal people. And I thought, this is my family's pattern, just dressed in a different outfit. Small neglects, dismissed warnings, people telling themselves it's fine, until it isn't. That night, I opened my laptop and built the first version of what became Clearloom. Not a revolutionary platform, not a tech bro fantasy, a practical system. Encryption, access control, audit trails, compliance checklists, all bundled in a way small clinics could actually use. Simple, clear, affordable. A safety net for the people nobody designed for. It was messy in the beginning. It broke in ways that made me want to cry. I'd fix one bug and uncover 3 more. I'd pitch a clinic, get rejected, pitch again, get ignored. Sometimes I'd come home and sit on the edge of my bed, too tired to even take my shoes off, and wonder if I was delusional. Then Ivy would send me one line. Keep it small, keep it real, keep it moving. The first client came because a receptionist took a chance on me. She didn't care about my credentials. She cared that I listened to her fear without making her feel stupid. She cared that I didn't talk down to her. That contract wasn't much money, but it was proof. The second client came because the first one didn't collapse. Then a third, then a fourth, then a referral. Clearloom grew the way a spine grows, slowly, invisibly, until one day you realize you can stand up straight. Around that time, my cousin Sophie started texting me. We weren't close growing up. She was younger, quieter, easy to overlook, just like me. One night she sent, "Do you ever feel like nobody really sees you in this family?" I stared at that message for a long time. Then I wrote back, "All the time." After that, we talked more, small calls, late at night. Sophie told me she felt like she was always being compared, always being told she was lucky to have what she had, always expected to smile. I didn't give her inspirational speeches. I didn't pretend I had it all figured out. I just listened. I said, "You're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're not invisible because you're worthless. You're invisible because they're used to not looking." The more Clearloom grew, the less I told my family. Not out of spite, out of self-protection. Every time I'd shared something in the past, it had been turned into a footnote, a shrug, a quick "good for you" before the conversation snapped back to Logan. So I learned a new habit. I celebrated quietly with people who actually showed up. My team, 2 hires I made when revenue finally stabilized, took me out to cheap tacos and we toasted with soda because we were too tired for anything stronger. Ivy sent me a single email. "You're building something honest. Don't let anyone cheapen it." Meanwhile, back in Charleston, Logan kept needing a little help. The requests got bolder. One time he texted me directly, "Hey, can you spot me until my next thing takes off?" I stared at the message, feeling that old pressure rise, the instinct to be easy, to make the problem go away, to keep the peace. Then I heard Ivy's voice in my head. Stop trying to be perfect. Try to be dangerous in a quiet way. So I wrote back, no. Just that. No explanation, no apology. Logan didn't respond for hours. Then he sent a laughing emoji and, wow, you really think you're better than me now. I didn't reply, but my hands shook anyway. Not because I doubted my decision, but because for the first time, I was choosing myself over the role they'd assigned me. And that kind of choice always feels like stepping off a cliff until you learn you have wings. The first serious acquisition email came on an ordinary Tuesday. Subject line, Strategic Partnership Discussion. I almost deleted it, assuming it was spam. But it wasn't. It was a real company, real interest, real numbers, real questions that made my brain sharpen into focus. I took the call in a borrowed conference room, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. When they asked about our security posture and retention metrics, I answered like I belonged there. Because I did. After the call, I walked out into the hallway and leaned my head against the cool wall. My mouth tasted like metal. My legs felt weak. And my first thought wasn't celebration. It was my mother's voice. She'll be fine. I opened my phone and saw I had a missed call from her. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, a text came in from Logan. Big news soon. Family's gonna want in. Just saying. I read it twice. Then I looked at my calendar. Thanksgiving was marked there, circled like a warning. And for the first time, I understood exactly what my success would mean to them once they smelled it. Not love, not pride, access. Clearloom didn't blow up. It didn't go viral. No one made a montage about me on the internet. It grew the way real things grow, quietly, stubbornly, in the same direction every day. By the time I had 5 people on payroll, I could tell what kind of leader I was becoming by what I did when something went wrong. And something always went wrong. The first real crisis hit on a Wednesday afternoon, right after lunch, when my operations lead, Tessa, walked into my office with her face drained of color. "We've got a problem," she said. Those 4 words can do something to your body. They can pull all the warmth out of you in one clean motion. My chest tightened. My mind started racing through worst-case scenarios like a machine. A client had received an email that looked like it came from us. Same branding, same tone, same security update language. The link inside it led to a fake login page. 2 staff members had entered credentials before anyone realized what was happening. It wasn't our system that had been hacked. It was a spoofing attack, social engineering, misdirection, human error. But in the world we served, facts didn't matter at first. Fear mattered. Trust mattered. And trust, once cracked, spreads fractures fast. For 10 minutes, my team talked over each other. Someone wanted to send a mass email immediately. Someone else wanted to wait until we had more information. Tessa was already drafting an incident report. My engineer, Malik, pulled up logs with hands that didn't shake even though his eyes looked sharp and worried. I listened. I let the noise pour out. Then I said, quietly, "Stop." The room stilled. "Here's what we're doing," I told them. "We tell the truth, we move fast, we take responsibility for what's ours, and we help with what isn't." And then we worked. We called the client, not a generic hotline call, me, personally. I spoke to the practice manager, who sounded like she was about to cry. I told her exactly what we knew, exactly what we didn't, and what we were doing next. No minimizing, no corporate fluff. We walked her through password resets, token revocations, multi-factor enforcement. We helped them file an internal report. We connected them to a cybersecurity attorney because fear is less powerful when you hand someone a plan. By midnight, the attack was contained. By morning, the client wasn't furious anymore. She was grateful. But I wasn't relieved. I was sick to my stomach, because while my team slept, I stared at my ceiling and realized something I'd never admitted out loud. I had built Clearloom as a safety net for other people because I never had one. If I failed, there was no parent to catch me, no family cushion, no brother who would pull me up. The only thing under me was the work, and the promise I'd made to myself that I would never go back to being the girl in the corner seat. That crisis changed us. We tightened protocols. We expanded user education. We built a spoofing alert feature. We put a new line into our onboarding. Security isn't just a product, it's a habit. But the bigger change happened inside me. I stopped treating my business like a desperate climb for validation. I started treating it like a responsibility I was worthy of. Not long after, the first serious offer came in. It wasn't an acquisition at first. It was a strategic partnership conversation, the corporate phrase that tries to sound friendly while keeping all the power on their side. The company was large, one of those names you see in healthcare services, the kind that owns networks of clinics and knows how to move money quietly. They wanted a demo, then another, then a deeper dive, then a call with their compliance team. Each step felt like walking into a room where everyone already knew the rules, and I was expected to prove I belonged without showing a single tremor. I did what I always did when I was scared. I prepared until fear had nowhere to sit. I built decks, I rehearsed answers, I reviewed logs and performance metrics until the numbers lived behind my eyes. I asked Ivy to listen to my pitch and tear it apart. She did, calmly, brutally, lovingly. "Don't apologize with your posture," she told me. "You built something they need. Act like it." Then she paused and added, "And remember, need doesn't equal respect. Make them earn your yes." The first buyer was a tech firm that wanted Clearloom the way a person wants a tool, useful, replaceable, something you can buy cheap and strip down for parts. Their questions weren't about patients or clinics. Their questions were about margins and streamlining. They talked about reducing support overhead and automating the human element, like people were the mess that needed to be cleaned up. When they made an offer, it was big enough to make my heart stutter. It was also sharp enough to cut the soul out of what I'd built. Their term sheet had quiet little blades hidden inside it. They could change pricing at will. They could sunset features. They could dissolve our customer support team and push clinics into self-service portals that would leave them stranded. I read it twice. Then I said, no. My attorney blinked. Tessa looked at me like she was afraid I'd lost my mind. I felt the old voice rise in me. Take it, be grateful, don't be difficult. But another voice, quieter and stronger, answered back. If you sell your spine, you'll spend the rest of your life crawling. 2 weeks later, a different kind of company approached us. Not a pure tech firm, a healthcare services group with actual clinics under their umbrella. Their compliance director spoke like a person, not a spreadsheet. She asked how we trained staff. She asked how we handled panic. She asked what we'd learned from real mistakes. When they talked about acquisition, they didn't just talk about money. They talked about scale with integrity. They offered retention bonuses for my team. They offered to keep our product roadmap intact. They wanted to use our system to raise the baseline of security across dozens of small practices, not squeeze them for profit until they cracked. That offer felt different. It scared me more, because it meant the thing I'd built out of loneliness was about to become public. It meant my name could show up in places my family might see. It meant the version of me they'd ignored might suddenly become useful to them. Negotiations became a second job, a third job, a life that tasted like coffee and legal language. Every sentence mattered. Every clause was a trap if you didn't read it with suspicion. I learned more about power in those weeks than I learned in my entire childhood. Power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it smiles and asks you to be flexible. Sometimes it offers you praise like a leash, and I was determined not to be leashed. The day we reached final terms, I sat alone in my office after everyone left. The city outside my window glowed soft and indifferent. My inbox was quiet for the first time in weeks. $200 million. It should have felt like fireworks. Instead, it felt like a door closing, not on my career, on my old life. I thought about Charleston, about the corner seats, about the phrase my mom loved so much. She's easy. And for the first time, I realized what easy had cost me. It had cost me a voice. It had cost me the right to be held. It had cost me the expectation that someone would show up for me without being asked. I didn't call my mom that night. I called my therapist. When she picked up, I surprised myself by saying, "I don't feel happy." There was a beat of silence. Then she said, gently, "Tell me what you do feel." I stared at my hands on the desk. They looked steady. They were not steady inside. "I feel empty," I admitted, "like I won something I spent my whole life chasing, and now I don't know where to put it." I thought it would fix the part of me that still wants my mother to look at me and mean it. My therapist didn't rush to comfort me. She let the truth land. Then she said, "Maybe success isn't what fixes that part. Maybe boundaries do." Boundaries. The word tasted strange, like medicine you don't want but need. After the call, I opened my calendar and stared at the date circled in red. Thanksgiving. A holiday built around family, gratitude, belonging. A holiday that had always made me feel like a guest in my own house. I asked myself a question I'd avoided for years. What do you want from them? The answer came faster than I expected. I want the truth. Not their rewritten version, not their performance, the truth. So I decided I would go home. Not to announce my success, not to show off, not to punish them, to observe. To see how they treated me when they believed I was still the same Maya, fine, easy, forgettable. I booked a hotel instead of staying in the family house. I rented a car. I chose flight times that gave me control. I didn't tell my mom details. I didn't tell Logan anything at all. Then a message came in from my cousin Sophie late one night. "You okay?" she wrote. "Mom says you might come for Thanksgiving." I stared at the screen, then typed back, "I'm okay. I'm just careful." Sophie replied, "Be careful with them. They don't know how to love you without using you." I felt my throat tighten, because she was right, and because I knew what was coming. When people like my mother and brother smell money, they don't ask what it cost you, they ask what it can do for them. 3 days before my flight, my mom called. I watched her name on the screen until it stopped ringing. I didn't have the strength for her voice yet. A minute later, Logan texted me. "Big family meeting at Thanksgiving. Don't bail. Important." Important. The words sat there like a hook. I could already see the scene before it happened. The table, the turkey, the smiles, the casual jokes that weren't really jokes. And then the moment where someone would decide I should pay for the life they refused to notice. I set my phone down, stared out the window at Atlanta's lights, and made myself one promise. This time, I wouldn't beg to be seen. This time, I would let them show me exactly who they were without my help. I got into Charleston the day before Thanksgiving and went straight to my hotel. That choice alone felt like rebellion. In my family, you didn't stay somewhere else. You didn't create distance. You didn't quietly build a life with doors that locked from the inside. You showed up, you blended in, you smiled, you played your role. If you did anything different, it was taken as a statement. And it was. The hotel room smelled like fresh detergent and lemon cleaner. The sheets were crisp, the silence was clean. I stood by the window for a long moment, watching headlights slide through the evening like slow-moving thoughts, and I told myself the same thing I told myself for weeks. I'm not here to win. I'm here to see the truth. The next afternoon, I drove to my parents' house with my hands steady on the steering wheel and my stomach tight like a fist. The neighborhood looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe I was just bigger now. The trees were bare, the sky pale, and the front porch light was already on even though it wasn't dark yet. When I walked in, my mom was in the kitchen, apron tied tight, hair pulled back, moving fast like she was performing Perfect Holiday for an invisible audience. The smell of turkey and butter and herbs hit me, and with it, a wave of memories I didn't ask for. She turned, saw me, and her face lit up in a bright, practiced way. "There you are," she said, like I was late to something I was supposed to care about. She kissed my cheek, quick, light, and stepped back to look me over. "You look older." I almost laughed. Older, not happier, not good to see you too, just older, like I was a piece of furniture she hadn't dusted in a while. "It's good to see you too," I said, and kept my voice even. My dad appeared behind her, holding a dish towel like a shield. He gave me a small smile. "Hey, kiddo." Kiddo, a nickname that always made me feel both loved and unseen at the same time. Then Logan came in from the living room like he owned the air. He wore a nice sweater, cologne too strong, confidence too loud. He grinned at me, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Well, look who finally showed. Still alive in Atlanta?" I smiled back, polite and empty. "Still alive." He looked me up and down like he was measuring how much I could be worth. Then he turned away as if I'd already been categorized. The house was exactly the same and not the same at all. Same framed photos along the hallway, same kitchen clock, same Thanksgiving decorations. And still, so many pictures of Logan. Logan holding trophies, Logan in graduation robes, Logan smiling with his arm around my mom. There were a couple pictures of me, but they were older, smaller, tucked into corners like afterthoughts. I stood there a moment too long, looking at the wall, and realized it wasn't bitterness I felt. It was clarity. We were already seated at the table when the first small cut happened. My mom put wine in Logan's glass without asking. She offered me water. "Do you want some wine too?" she said as she slid the water toward me, like wine for me was an optional extra she'd forgotten to plan for. "I'm fine," I said. There it was again. Fine. The word that had been used to dismiss me from my entire life, now coming out of my own mouth like a habit. My aunt arrived next, then a couple cousins, and the room filled with the kind of holiday noise that can sound joyful from the outside, but feels sharp when you're bracing for impact. People hugged, people laughed, people commented on the food, and every conversation that drifted toward me landed the same way. "So Maya, work is good?" "Yes." "That's great." And then, inevitably, back to Logan. "Logan, tell us about your big project." Logan straightened like a flower turning toward the sun. "Oh, you know," he said modestly, which was hilarious because he'd never been modest in his life. "I'm building something. It's huge. It's the kind of thing that changes the game." My mom beamed, my dad nodded, the relatives leaned in. I watched it like someone watching a familiar show. Same plot, same lead character, same supporting cast. When my mom finally sat down, she clapped her hands lightly like she was calling everyone to attention. "Okay," she said, "before we eat, I just want to say how grateful I am for family, for being together, for the way we always support each other." Her eyes flicked to me for a half second. Support. The word landed like a quiet demand. We started eating. The turkey was perfect. The mashed potatoes were creamy. The cranberry sauce was too sweet. All of it tasted like tradition and expectation. At first, I managed to just be present. I laughed at the right moments. I answered questions politely. I told myself I could get through one dinner without bleeding. Then Logan turned his chair slightly toward me and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "So seriously, what are you doing these days? Still running that little software thing for, what, dentists?" A couple people chuckled. The old heat rose in my chest. Not rage, not yet, just that familiar humiliation of being turned into a punchline. I smiled, controlled. "Yes, that's part of what we do." Logan smirked. "Must be nice, playing business. Meanwhile, some of us are actually trying to build something real." My mom laughed softly again, like his cruelty was charming. "Logan," she said, not scolding, just performing a gentle warning. Then she turned to the table. "Maya's always been independent. She's the easy one. She's fine." The words hit me harder than Logan's joke, because my mother said them like a blessing, like she was proud of how little I needed, like my ability to survive without love was a family achievement. I felt my fingers tighten around my fork. I set it down carefully because I didn't trust myself not to snap it. Logan took the opening. He launched into his pitch like he'd been waiting all night. "Here's the thing," he said, spreading his hands. "The market is ready. I've got the plan. I've got the network. The only thing I need is capital to scale fast. If we can get in early, it's insane upside." He looked around the table, soaking in their attention. Then he looked at me, direct, deliberate. "And family should be first in line to invest." There it was. Not a request, a claim. My mom jumped in immediately, eyes shining like she was finally getting to the point. "Maya," she said warmly, "you're so smart. You understand these things. You could help your brother get this off the ground. Just a little push. That's all he needs." Just a little push. Like it was always just a little push. Like my money, my years of exhaustion, my sleepless nights, my sacrifices were just a small tool they could pick up and use. I felt the room watching me, the relatives, the cousins, the aunt who had always been polite but never close. Their eyes weren't cruel, just curious, waiting. I could have lied. I could have dodged. I could have played the role they loved, the easy daughter who doesn't cause trouble. But something in me had already crossed a line. I looked at my mom and realized she wasn't asking because she believed in me. She was asking because she believed I could be used. Logan's grin widened like he could already taste the win. "Come on," he said. "You've got a decent job. You can spare a little." A decent job. I almost laughed and it would have come out ugly. Instead, I did the one thing I'd promised myself I would do if the truth showed up. I let it be seen. I pushed my chair back slightly, not dramatically, just enough to create space. Then I said, calmly, "I sold the company." Logan snorted. "Sure you did." My mom blinked. "What do you mean, sold?" Logan leaned forward, eyes bright with mockery. "How much? 5 grand? 10? I looked at him, really looked, not at the performance, but at the insecurity underneath it, and I answered in the same calm voice I'd used when I told my team what to do during a crisis. $200 million. The table went silent in the most complete way. Even the fireplace seemed to stop making noise. My aunt's mouth opened slightly and stayed there. Someone's fork hovered midair. My mom's face drained. Her hand went to her chest as if she'd been hit. "Maya," she whispered, like the name suddenly meant something she hadn't prepared for. Logan's expression changed in stages. First disbelief, then anger, then something close to fear. "That's not," he started, then stopped because he didn't know what argument to grab. My dad stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time and realizing he'd missed the entire movie. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I didn't shove it in anyone's face. I didn't wave it around. I tapped once, then turned the screen toward my mom. An article headline, my name, Clearloom, acquisition. Proof. My mom's fingers trembled as she took the phone. She read it once, then again, faster, like her brain refused to accept the words. Her eyes lifted to mine, glossy and panicked. Logan's position pushed back so hard it scraped the floor. So what, you're rich now and you didn't tell anyone? I held his gaze. You never asked. My mom found her voice, and it came out in the tone I dreaded my whole life. Sweet, urgent, pleading. The tone she used when she wanted something without admitting it. Honey, she said, reaching across the table, this changes things. We're family. We have to be smart about this. Logan just needs a little support. You can help him, and it'll be good for everyone. There it was. No apology. No, I'm sorry I didn't see you. No, I'm sorry I made you small. Just, this changes things. Meaning my value had changed, not my humanity. I pulled my hand back gently. My voice stayed calm, but my heart was pounding hard enough to rattle my ribs. I said, I didn't come here to fund Logan. I came here to eat dinner with my family. My mom's eyes narrowed, offended. So you're going to sit there with all that and not help your own brother? Logan laughed, sharp and bitter. Unbelievable. You get lucky once and think you're above us. Lucky. The word that always shows up when people want to erase your work. I looked at my plate, at the turkey I suddenly couldn't swallow, and I felt the last thread inside me snap, not into rage, but into certainty. I stood up. The room moved, everyone shifting, waiting for a scene. My mom's voice rose. Maya, don't be dramatic. I picked up my coat from the back of my chair. I said, quietly, I'm not being dramatic, I'm being honest. My dad half stood like he wanted to stop me, then sat back down, trapped in his own silence. I looked at my mom one last time. All my life, you said I was fine. You said I was easy. You said I could handle myself. And you used that to justify not showing up for me. Her face tightened like I slapped her. I didn't wait for an answer. I walked out. The porch air was cold and clean. The night smelled like damp leaves. My hands were shaking now, not because I regretted what I said, but because I spent my whole life swallowing things, and tonight I'd finally let them out. I got in my car and sat there for a moment, breathing, staring at the soft glow of the house behind me. Inside, voices rose and fell like distant waves. I knew they were talking about me now, really talking, not forgetting. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I needed to go back in and fix it. I started the engine, pulled away from the curb, and drove toward my hotel, toward my own bed, toward my own silence, toward a life where I didn't have to earn a seat at the table by paying for it. I expected my phone to explode the minute I pulled into the hotel parking lot. It didn't. For 10 quiet minutes, nothing happened. No calls, no text, just the steady hum of the building's air conditioner and the soft click of my keys as I set them down on the dresser. That silence should have felt like relief. Instead, it felt like the moment after a door slams, when you're not sure if you locked it behind you or if it's about to fly open again. I showered, put on a sweatshirt, and sat on the edge of the bed with my hair still damp. I stared at the wall like it might offer instructions. My hands were shaking, and that surprised me. I'd spoken calmly. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't thrown anything. I hadn't said half the cruel things I could have said. But I had done the one thing my family never allowed me to do. I had made myself real. At 11:47 that night, my mom finally texted, Maya, we need to talk. This isn't how family acts. I read it twice, feeling something inside me harden. not into anger, but into recognition. Even now, even after everything, she was still more concerned with the rules than the damage. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Why didn't I know?" Not, "I'm sorry." Just, "You broke the script." A minute later, another message. "Your father is very upset. Logan is humiliated. You made a scene." I let the word humiliated sit there like a lie. Logan hadn't been humiliated by my honesty. He'd been humiliated by reality, by the fact that I wasn't the easy daughter he could joke about in front of an audience anymore, by the fact that his favorite story, Logan the future success, had a new character he couldn't control. My phone rang. Logan. I didn't pick up. I watched it ring until it stopped, then go silent. Within seconds, a voicemail notification appeared, followed by a text. "Wow, so you're rich now and you think you can just disrespect Mom? You owe her. You owe all of us." Oh. That word had been sitting in the background of my whole life, invisible but heavy, like my existence was a debt I had to repay by being convenient. I typed one sentence and stared at it before hitting send. "I don't owe you access to my life." Then I turned my phone face down on the bed. The next morning, the messages came in waves. My aunt wrote something vague about keeping peace. My cousin wrote that everyone was shocked. Sophie sent one line, "I'm proud of you. Don't go back in there." That was the only message that felt like a hand on my shoulder instead of a hand in my pocket. By noon, my mom switched tactics. She called again and left a voicemail. Her voice was softer this time, sugar poured over steel. "Honey, we were just surprised. We didn't know. But now that we do, we need to be responsible. This kind of money affects the whole family. We have to talk about what's fair." Fair. The nerve of that word nearly made me laugh. Fair would have been my mother asking about my life before she asked for my help. Fair would have been my father stepping in the first time Logan mocked me. Fair would have been anyone noticing my exhaustion before it turned into success. I didn't call her back. I met my attorney on a video call instead. Her name was Marissa. She was calm in a way that made chaos feel smaller. I told her in a clipped, factual way what had happened. I told her I hadn't promised anyone anything. I told her my family had started hinting about what's fair. Marissa didn't look surprised. She asked 2 questions. "Do they have access to any of your accounts?" "No." "Do they have a history of financial entanglement with you?" "No." "Good," she said. "Then we keep it that way." That afternoon, a letter arrived at my hotel front desk. The envelope had my name on it in my mom's handwriting. For a second, my chest tightened like I was 12 again, opening a note I wasn't sure I deserved. Inside was a single page. It wasn't an apology, it was a list. A list of everything my parents had done for me. Clothes, food, school supplies, a roof, a childhood I was supposed to be grateful for. And at the bottom, a sentence that made my jaw clench so hard it hurt. "IU can repay us by helping your brother get established since you have more than enough." I stared at the paper until the words blurred. It wasn't the demand that broke me, it was the certainty behind it. My mother truly believed that giving birth to me meant she owned the results of my survival. I called my dad. He answered on the second ring, voice strained. "Maya?" I asked, "Did you know about this letter?" A pause. Too long. "Yes," he admitted quietly. I shut my eyes. "And you let her send it anyway?" Another pause. Heavier. I didn't know what to do. That sentence, 4 words, summed up my father perfectly. I didn't yell. I didn't insult him. I just said, "That's what you've said my whole life." He exhaled, small and shaky. "I'm sorry." It wasn't enough, but it was something, and it made me realize the truth I'd avoided. My father wasn't the villain. He was just the quiet man who watched the villain win. That night, Logan escalated. He posted something online. Not my name, not directly, but enough. A vague story about people who abandon family when they get money, about snakes who forget where they came from. He tagged a few relatives. The comments were a mess. Some sympathetic, some confused, some hungry for drama. Then he texted me a screenshot of his new business plan with a number highlighted, an amount of money he wanted from me, not as a loan, not as an investment with terms, a demand wrapped in the language of opportunity. Consider it your contribution, he wrote. Contribution, like I was a bank account that belonged to the family. I forwarded everything to Marissa. Within 24 hours, Logan received a cease and desist letter warning him to stop implying I was backing his business, stop defaming me, and stop using my name or achievements to solicit funds. It wasn't a threat. It was a boundary in legal ink. Logan called me screaming. I didn't answer. My mom called crying. I didn't answer. I did, however, answer Sophie when she called. She was whispering, like she didn't want the house to hear her. "He's losing it," she said. "Mom is blaming you for everything. She says you broke the family." I leaned back against the headboard and stared at the ceiling. "I didn't break it," I said. "I just stopped holding it together." A week later, the real consequences started, and they didn't come from me. They came from the life Logan had been allowed to avoid. Because once my mother couldn't pull money from me, she tried to pull it from somewhere else. She took out a loan she couldn't afford. She co-signed something she didn't understand. She tried to save Logan the way she always had, by protecting him from reality. Reality doesn't negotiate. Within months, Logan's new venture collapsed before it even launched. The people he'd bragged to quietly backed away when they realized there was no Maya money behind him. His credit dried up. His charm stopped working. When he couldn't blame me, he blamed everyone. My mom called me again one night, voice small and ragged. For the first time, she didn't sound angry. She sounded tired. "We might lose the house," she said. The old version of me, Easy Maya, would have panicked and offered to fix it, would have wired money just to stop the emotional noise, would have paid for peace and called it love. I sat very still, my heart pounding, and I let myself feel the grief of what I was not going to do. "I'm sorry," I said quietly, and I meant it, but I'm not paying for Logan's choices. My mom inhaled sharply, like she wanted to argue. Then she didn't. She hung up. 2 weeks later, a new letter arrived, not from my mom's hand, typed. Short. It was the closest thing to an apology I had ever received from her. It didn't undo the past. It didn't suddenly make her gentle, but it acknowledged something that mattered. She had treated me like I would always be fine, and she was wrong to use that against me. I read it twice, then folded it and set it in a drawer, not as a trophy, as proof that my truth had finally reached her, however late. On the morning I flew back to Atlanta, I sat in the airport with a coffee I didn't really taste and watched families crowd around gates, hugging, laughing, carrying leftovers in foil. I felt a sting of envy. Then I felt something else, quieter. Peace. Not the peace my father wanted, the kind that comes from swallowing everything. A different peace, the kind you build when you stop negotiating your worth. I sent one message to the family group chat before takeoff. One message. No drama, no explanation. "I love you, but my money is not family property. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be based on respect, not access." Then I turned my phone off. As the plane lifted into the clouds, the sunlight broke across the window, bright enough to make me squint, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was leaving something behind. I felt like I was finally going forward. Alone, maybe, but not small, not easy, not invisible.